There's a question I want you to honestly ask yourself. Do you drink more than you mean to regularly? Do you make rules about your drinking and then break them? Do you ever wake up and before anything else, you feel a quiet shame about the night before? If any of that landed, then this video is for you. Most people believe that there are just two kinds of drinkers, that you're either fine, a normal person who enjoys a glass of wine occasionally at dinner, or you're an alcoholic, someone who's lost everything. You've hit rock bottom and you've got a problem with a capital P. And if you don't fit that second category, you tell yourself you're in the first one. End of story. But here's what nobody told you. That binary is a lie. It turns out that drinking is a wide spectrum, and that spectrum has a name. It's called the gray area. And once you understand it, everything changes. I know this space intimately because I lived in it for years. I've now been alcohol-free for over 5 years, and I've spent the past 4 years helping people do the same as a gray area drinking coach. Today, I'm going to break down what gray area drinking actually is, show you the research that the alcohol industry doesn't want you to see, explain why the language like alcoholic is distracting us from the real problem, and share the reframe that changed everything for me. Let's get into it. I want to start with something that actually stopped me cold when I first learned it. For decades, we were told that a glass of red wine is good for your heart, that moderate drinking is fine, that alcohol in moderation is part of a healthy lifestyle. Well, that message was not neutral. It was actually funded. The alcohol industry ran the same playbook as big tobacco, funding research, shaping narratives, and quietly burying the studies that told a different story. In 2018, the Lancet, one of the world's most respected medical journals, published a landmark global study. The conclusion was unambiguous. There is no safe level of alcohol consumption. In 2022, the World Heart Federation reaffirmed it and specifically named big alcohol's decades of misleading research. Alcohol is actually a group 1 carcinogen, same category as tobacco and asbestos. It increases the risk of at least 7 types of cancer, and that risk begins at the very first drink. 178,000 Americans die from alcohol-related causes every single year, and that number has risen 29% since 2017. Now, I'm not sharing this to scare you. I'm sharing it because you deserve accurate information. And the information you were given, the information that most of us grew up with, was shaped by an industry with billions of dollars at stake. When you understand that, everything we're about to talk about lands differently. And here's the thing, even knowing all of that, people still can't stop. Not because they're weak, but because there's something much more interesting happening in the brain. The binary, normal or alcoholic, was always false. There is only a spectrum. And every single drinking label we use lives somewhere on it. Social drinker, binge drinker, problem drinker, high-functioning alcoholic, alcohol use disorder, mild, moderate, or severe, they're all gray area. Now let's get into what gray area drinking is. It's actually a term that was popularized by functional nutritionist and my mentor, Jolene Park. So the gray area is a wide spectrum with no black or white categories, simply lots of space in between, which gives it the appropriate name of gray area drinking. Gray area drinking has clear definitions and parameters and is backed up by medical research. Now I want you to ask yourself, do you drink more than you intend to regularly? Do you make rules about your drinking and then break them? Do you think about alcohol more than you'd like to admit? Do you feel anxious, flat, or irritable when you don't drink? Do you wonder why you can stop for a while, but then go back to drinking, especially when life gets tough? If any of that is true, even one, that's not weakness. That's just information. You do not have to be at the far end of the spectrum, for alcohol to be quietly making your life smaller. You don't have to have lost anything yet. The question is simply, is this dimming your light? Because it was dimming mine. But here's what made it so hard to admit. It's not just denial. There's a specific word that was getting in the way. And once I understood that, everything changed. I have never, and I will never use the word alcoholic in my coaching. Not because I'm uncomfortable with the reality of addiction, but because I've watched firsthand how that word keeps people from getting help. Here's what can happen in the brain when someone hears the word alcoholic. It immediately starts scanning for reasons that label doesn't apply. That's not me. I still have my job. My kids are fine. I'm functioning. Stigma isn't a side effect of the problem. It's actually a barrier to solving it. Dr. Nzinga Harrison, in her book on addiction, points out that even healthcare professionals are still using that language. And it's creating shame instead of support, which is why so many people never seek treatment. The most recent data shows that fewer than 10% of people with alcohol use disorder receive any help. If you've ever avoided a conversation or avoided getting help, avoided even Googling your symptoms because you were afraid of what you'd find or what you'd have to start calling yourself, that fear is not weakness. That's stigma working exactly as designed. And it's exactly why this conversation exists. So if we're letting go of the binary and letting go of the label, what do we actually call this? Let's get the language right, because the right words can open a door. Gray area drinking has been defined as the space between the extremes of end stage or rock bottom drinking and every now and again drinking. End stage or rock bottom drinking means a medical detox is needed to prevent seizures or death when stopping drinking. End stage drinkers might also require medication to stop drinking, or they may need medical support to monitor the liver, pancreas, stomach, or other physiological issues caused by drinking. Some end-stage drinkers find it necessary to remove themselves from their environments and check into an inpatient or an outpatient treatment center so they can stick with the quit process. Every now and again drinking means 2 or fewer drinks per week. It's very common for this category of drinkers to go weeks or months without drinking any alcohol at all. Otherwise, most people who drink are drinking in that space between these two extremes. They drink more than 2 drinks a week, but they don't need medical intervention to stop drinking. That is gray area drinking. None of these labels are a verdict. They're a compass. The right language helps you understand where you are so you can figure out where you want to go. And I know exactly where I was and what finally got me out. Because it wasn't willpower. It wasn't hitting another rock bottom. It was understanding something about my brain that nobody ever explained to me. I drank alcohol for 20 years. 95% of that time was in the gray area. But a series of events between 2017 and 2018 pushed me into a dark place where my drinking started to exit that gray area and enter what I call the danger zone. I tried to stop more times than I could count, and I kept coming back because I didn't understand what was happening in my brain. I wasn't losing jobs, but I was quietly suffering in a way that was hard to explain because on paper, things looked fine. I tried to stop more times than I can count, and I kept coming back because I didn't understand what was happening in my brain. On January 1st, 2021, after my last blackout, something shifted. As the alcohol was leaving my body that evening, I felt a clarity that I hadn't felt in years. I knew I didn't want this anymore. For years, I drank in the gray area, but my forever decision to stop became very black and white. The next day, I rewatched Jolene Park's TED Talk on gray area drinking. And when I read that she guides clients through the missing physiological pieces, not just the psychological ones, but the physiological ones, that the body needs to release cravings and anxiety, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, which was hope. I started working with her that week, and I have not looked back. I finally understood why my brain was doing what it was doing. And once I understood that, I could work with my brain instead of against it. That's exactly what I do now in my coaching practice, Brighten Your Life. I work with people who are in the gray area, and I walk them through the physiological, neuroscience-based approach that actually heals cravings at the source. If that's where you are right now, check out the link in the description to see how to work with me directly. If you came in thinking there were only two kinds of drinkers, I hope this cracked that wide open, because the gray area is real. It's massive. And if you're in it, you're not alone. You are not broken. And there is another way. Share this video with someone who needs this conversation, because there's a person in your life right now who doesn't have a word for what they're feeling, and this might be the thing that gives it to them. Now, if you've made it this far, I have a gift for you. In my coaching, we focus on both psychological and physiological practices. Most people miss the physical part. I usually save this for my clients, but I want to share a simple tool with you right now. I want you to go ahead and breathe with me. And as you're breathing, I want you to invoke a longer exhale, almost double length of your inhale, so that you can start to regulate any nervous, dysregulated energy that you might be feeling. And we can keep this really simple. You can take 2 breaths in and 4 breaths out. You can also try 3 breaths in and 6 breaths out. This is a favorite amongst my clients, and it's usually one of the first things I share with them. It's something that you can keep in your back pocket and bring out anytime. Now on this show, I will be providing more of these simple tools to help you regulate your nervous system. So be sure to subscribe, hit notifications, and I'll see you in the next video. I want to thank you for taking this journey with me, and as always, I'm rooting for you.